Friends, GameHub welcomes you. Today we're going to speak about the various topics related to The Last of Us Part 2, the difficulties of the game development process, and conclude how much money it has already brought to its creators. Discuss what is behind the hype around the second part of the game, evaluate the probability of the third release, share our opinions about the game, and decide whether it's worth playing, and much more interesting points. So, make yourself a cup of coffee, take some cookies, and get ready to hear about the fascinating and the most interesting facts. Let's get started. The history of Naughty Dog Studios dates back to 1984. At the time, it was called Jam Software. The developers gained their popularity due to the implementation of the first part of the game, which is Crash Bandicoot. Later, in 2001, the Naughty Dog studio was purchased by Sony Computer Entertainment for the development of exclusive games for its consoles. Already being in the ownership of the Sony company, the studio is developing Jak and Daxter: The Precursor Legacy, Next Uncharted: Drake's Fortune, and the sequence parts of the series. Since 2011, the studio has been continuing to work on the development of its future hit, Last of Us Part 1, which would bring the creators around 17 million sold releases in April 2018. To calculate more or less precisely, the amount of revenue variates around $1,100,000,000. The majority of satisfied gamers have created their own fan sites with a high level of an estimate on Metacritic. The result of such a tremendous success forced the company in 2016 to announce the continuation of the series that was named The Last of Us Part 2. The work kept on going. Throughout the development of the game process, the studio staff has experienced enormous difficulties due to the busy schedule, limited deadlines, pressure from fans, and in the end the pandemic that delayed the release. These conditions are known to greatly affect the development process, especially when there is a need to make the final version of high quality. The developers themselves confirm this fact and anonymously say that working in this studio means creating your favorite games, the masterpieces. However, it also means being ready to work continuously for 12 hours or more, and even on weekends. People have to sacrifice their personal time and health. That's what it means to work for Naughty Dog. Nevertheless, it was worth it. The Last of Us Part 2 was released on the 19th of June for PS4 exclusively. Sales of the second part exceeded over 4 million copies during the period of 3 days. The game became the fastest-selling title in British retail history and topped the charts in Japan and Germany. The game has also set a record in the Russian market. By the initial sales in stores of the M-Video and Eldorado network, it managed to become the most successful release among all the games for PS3 and PS4. The previous leaders were God of War, Marvel Spider-Man, and a remake of Final Fantasy VII. For comparison, the first, The Last of Us, which was released in mid-June 2013, overcame the 3.4 million copies sold in 3 weeks and became Sony's fastest-selling PS3 game. The number of the sales in the first week after the release, the game roughly earned $600 million. This figure is still growing rapidly, and we are sure it will come close to the value of its first part at $1 billion. However, taking into account the raised hype, most likely this amount will be significantly exceeded. This is of great importance, even by the standards of Hollywood. Only a small percentage of films like Avatar, Titanic, Avengers Endgame could achieve such heights. In the process of creation of a new part of the series, the development team faced many difficult tasks, one of which was the main character, Ellie, who became agile and mobile. That should be taken into account as this has a key impact on game mechanics. Here, for example, are quotes from the developers' diaries. Ellie is much more athletic and agile. We should keep this in mind when creating the gameplay. The introduction of the jump allowed us to make more interesting puzzles, more interesting environment that can also be integrated into battle scenes as often. Ellie is agile, can move more quickly and dodge attacks. It's also a great integration into the combat system. You run away from the enemy, bypass the flank, act stealthily, and just squeeze into some room or some object. Developers had also to work hard on the opponents, namely to make people more dangerous, who communicate much more with each other, speak their own language, which for sure makes the gameplay more complicated. As you know, the studio is famous for devoting its attention to every particular detail during the sequence development, so the Naughty Dog devoted a lot of time to trifles. For example, shooting at a bag of grain in Uncharted 4, which will lead to the bag being blown away and all its contents sprinkled out of it. A bright flashlight shining in Ellie's face in the first part of The Last of Us will make her blink and turn. These details exist due to the fact that the Naughty Dog has created a culture of perfectionism, where every little thing needs to be thoughtfully worked out. A multiplayer mode was planned to be implemented for the game, but in September 2019, the attempts to make it had to be abandoned in favor of concentrating efforts on creating a single-player campaign. Now, after the release, the studio is working on the development of the multiplayer mode, but what will it be like is still a secret. By the way, an interesting fact, the studio employees anonymously reported to us about the fact that they could have almost suffered from an accident which might have been caused because of the construction works in the office building. The workers didn't expect some to be present in the office at 9 p.m. when a metal pipe fell right into the halls. It was a miracle that no one was hurt. The game has faced a lot of noise, scandal, and hype in terms of why has this game blown up the internet so much. Yes, of course, the game is made at the highest possible level. It is one of the best among the AAA projects, but if it were not for the introduction of the LGBT movement into the game and everything connected with it, there definitely would be much less noise around it. Ellie is a lesbian, Abby is a muscled ripper, Dina, who is deprived of curvaceous and indeed feminine in comparison with its actress prototype who played her, developers in funny outfits, propaganda disgruntled a lot of fans, shouting, "Feminists killed the game." This whole situation greatly increased the popularity of The Last of Us 2, and consequently, the popularity of the studio. It sometimes seems to us that at such a pace in the third, there will be no division into a man or a woman. All living beings will be neutral bisexuals. On some forums, they often mention that in the third part, they will reveal the main secret of the entire trilogy. They say Ellie is a transgender. Now the LGBT movement is mentioned everywhere, and the fact that Ellie was a lesbian was known from the edition for the first part called The Left Behind, and the comic strip The Last of Us American Dreams. Roughly speaking, the LGBT movement captures all popular and non-popular projects. And many large companies cave in under this movement. For what? A lot of money revolves around this, and it justifies everything. Many fans are dissatisfied not with the LGBT movement itself, but with the fact that it is so fiercely and actively promoted everywhere. One player quoted, "10 years ago, I was a minority, and I was completely calm about their way of thinking. But all these years, they have been pushing the LGBT agenda with such aggressive intolerance, crushing everything from games and the film industry to educational programs and children's cartoons, that it really causes disgust. And my attitude towards minorities has changed, of course in a negative direction. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who says that."
I'm stuck in limbo.
After such a hype around the game, a logical question is coming up in the mind. What if it is all for nothing? Maybe the Naughty Dog could have foreseen a possible hype due to the introduction of LGBT themes into the video game and did it on purpose? After all, many people found out about the game mainly due to the noise created around it. The LGBT topic was already heard before the development began. It is quite possible that the Naughty Dog predicted the growth of the LGBT movement and decided to increase the sales of their project with a wave of disputes, criticism, and discussion. This option is quite possible, and most likely it was just so. It's not necessary to go far to find examples. For instance, Pokemon Go, which has become so widely known to the masses thanks to the pre-thought-out PR move. More than one person worked on this process. The employees responsible for public relations attracted the company Jukin Media and made a viral video that was further distributed by the media. Then it got started to go. Stormy discussions on YouTube, on forums, in social networks, literally everywhere. But the developers of The Last of Us 2 turned out to be more creative. Instead of pouring huge budgets into marketing by paying PR agencies, they laid a potentially resonant topic at the heart of the game's storyline, and it worked much better than any viral video. As you know, many companies cannot be blamed for earning capital on social resonant events. For example, coronavirus is a pandemic that has taken over the entire planet and which has carried many lives away. Nevertheless, there are companies that do a pretty profitable business on it. There are many merchants with coronavirus labels in clothing stores. A variety of masks are sold, with an unusual shape, with prints, diamonds, yes, there are some, etc. Similarly, the Naughty Dog has decided to advance and earn more by introducing the LGBT agenda into the game. Guys, how do you feel about LGBT people in games? Please let us know and leave your opinions down in the comments. What is the future of the series? Will there be a Last of Us Part 3? When being asked about a potential third part, the head answered as follows. As you could probably have expected, I'm going to speak a little vaguely and evasively. I think the inspection over to see if Part 3 should be done must be the same in the case of the sequel. There are no expectations with the first game, so we could do anything. Now that we have revealed the characters, themes, relationships, it seems useful for me to create the second part, which will not only be pleasant for the fans, but will correspond to the emotional essence produced by the first Last of Us. Without this, there would be no reason to create Part 3. I think many of you can understand that the third part will have financial success mainly due to the previous parts, which is a sufficient reason for the release of the third part. What else I should say is that in the game itself, there are already various hints of continuation, prerequisites, a certain understatement in the storyline, so that we can more or less surely say that Part 3 will be, if not a continuation, then a prequel, for sure. Taking into account that Naughty Dog releases about one game in 3 to 4 years, the next part can come out at all its best only in 2023. The second part impresses gamers with the quality of its directing from the very first seconds. From small size and barely perceptible elements of facial expressions of the characters to verified mounting glues per second. Moreover, the second part is written talentedly. The main characters do not express their motivation or emotions, and the developers make the most powerful statements of the principle of show, do not tell. Each gameplay segment and each location here is to serve for a specific purpose. The ludonarrative dissonance arises only as a powerful creative technique that allows you to reveal better the main idea. One of the most important things in the game is a gray moral. You will not have a particularly bad or good attitude towards this or that character. Everyone is right in his own way, and this very much affects the impression of the game, generally speaking. The second part of The Last of Us is a survival game, an excellent stealth action survival horror, a revenge story, a game with analyzing graphics, high-quality directing, high-quality dialogues, cool acting, a game with crazy attention to every detail, with a great setting, great and huge developers' works. To the question, is it worth playing? We will give you a definite answer, yes. It is worth playing, even if you would have to buy a PlayStation for that. Such games are rarely released. This is not a second-rate product. This is not a conveyor project. The creators, the developers have worked on this game 7 days a week, sacrificing their health and personal time. You, as a gamer, should try it. And be sure to go through the first part before passing further. Without going through the first part, you will not be able to get the proper satisfaction from the second. And if you are embarrassed by the LGBT agenda, just take it easy and more loyal. Just relax and feel the pleasure of the gameplay. So, guys, this is where I'm going to wrap up this video. If you've already played the second part, write us your impressions. How do you find it? Exciting or not? What do you like most? What did not? And how do you feel about the franchise in general? We are very interested to know all your opinions. Do please comment. It is all for now. Bye-bye and see you soon.